Now let me introduce our next guest speaker today, Dr. Indrani Lakmali Ginige, former Deputy Director of the National Institute of Education Sri Lanka, Council Member of the National Institute of Education Sri Lanka, and a Senior Lecturer at the South Asian International Institute of Higher Education Sri Lanka. Madam, may I respectfully invite you to speak to our audience today on the topic, how to change pedagogy and curriculum in early childhood development and care and primary education to build a child with 21st century skills. Over to you, madam.
So good afternoon, everybody. My intention today is to expose you to some new trends in education. I wish to do this with particular reference to the Sri Lankan education context. Let me begin by getting you to reflect on the term trend. Now, what is a trend? It is a change that is taking place over time. A change can be for the good or for the bad. Changes can be positive or negative. Let's look at some positive changes that have taken place in Sri Lanka, in the educational context of Sri Lanka. Let's look at the larger system of education. We see that we have three major types of education. Let's look at the large system of education and the three major types of education that we have there. First one is dealing with school education, and we refer to that as general education. Then we have tertiary education, which incorporates technical and vocational education. Then we have higher education, where the university system comes in. And the children or the young people there's a path for young people to get into the higher education system straight away, or to move from tertiary education to higher education. So this is the overall picture or the big picture of Sri Lankan education. We have three types of education. From early days, we had the general education or the school education. We also had higher education, but the technical colleges came under higher education, and the vocational part of education was entrusted to the schools. This is how we were functioning for quite a long time, but lately we started to have three types of education at the national level, governed by three ministries of education. We have one ministry to oversee the tasks of general education or school education. There's another ministry for higher education, and the new ministry is called the Ministry for Skill Development and Vocational Training. So that comes under the tertiary education sector. Now, what is the purpose of introducing tertiary education into our education system? We know that we are a poor country, so we can't provide university access to each and every young person who qualifies for that. For the GCAL, they have to sit three subjects, and they have to pass in the three subjects to gain admission to higher education. But unfortunately, even the people who get 3S for the GCAL, sometimes they fail to gain admission to the university system. Now this is a situation. So this brought about a lot of unrest in the young people. We had a lot of youth frustration. So to get over this problem, a decision was made to introduce another section called tertiary education. Right. So tertiary education, that's how it came to be. We had an act passed in 1990s, Technical and Vocational Education Act. It started, it initiated the development of a special commission, TVEC, Technical and Vocational Education Commission, and this commission in 2004 brought about a new system of education called tertiary education. Right, so tertiary education in 2004, I mentioned the name of the ministry. It was called the Ministry for Skill Development and Vocational Education. Under that ministry, today we have technical colleges, around 30 technical colleges are there, and also a big network of uh, uh, vocational centers, vocational centers. So the technical colleges have a long history. Our first technical college was introduced in was introduced in 1893. So you can see the history. It was introduced in Maradana, Colombo. It was introduced in 1893, first technical college. But we had some inefficiencies in its functioning, and it had to be revived later. Even with respect to higher education, we have a long history, right? We had the religious type of education because the children had to go to the temple for the basic education. They had to go to the Pirivanas for higher education. We had two leading Pirivanas in the country for provision of higher education. So later, the concept of school came to being, and the children had to go to the schools. So, general education deals with the school education. Now, if we look at our higher education sector, this also has a very long history. Ceylon Medical College, Sri Lanka was called Ceylon in the past. Ceylon Medical College was established in 1870. This, together with the Ceylon University College, led to the development or led to the initiation of the University of Ceylon in Colombo. That was the first university. University of Ceylon in Colombo was established in 1942. But we have to remember that the Ceylon Medical College has been there since 1870, and this medical college, uh, in affiliation or integrated with Ceylon University College, that led to the development of the first University of Ceylon in Colombo. By 2010, we have we had 15 universities, including Open University of Sri Lanka. We also had a network of postgraduate institutes affiliated to the universities. We had 11 postgraduate institutes affiliated to the universities. So these are the main things with regard to the three types of education. General education, that is a school education. We have roughly 10,000 schools spread all over the country to provide general education for the nation's children. Then tertiary education, dealing with technical education and vocational education, and higher education, catering to the needs of universities. Uh, yeah, so now the important thing is, with the introduction of tertiary education, now the school children have another path to enter the field of higher education. At the beginning, everybody had to sit the GCL exam, and only those who were successful could gain admission to the universities. But now they have opened up a different path. So now we have two types of frameworks. One framework is called the National Vocational Qualification Framework, NVQ framework. The other one, dealing with higher education, is called the SLQF, Sri Lanka Qualification Framework. The Sri Lanka Qualification Framework, it has 12 levels. The first level is GCOL, the second level is GCAL, then you have diplomas, higher diplomas, postgraduate diplomas, first degrees, then masters in education, MPhil in education, and at the highest level, that is level 12, we have the doctoral degrees. So this is how the higher education system functions. It has from GCOL to the doctoral level, it has we have to go step by step, and there are 12 levels to be completed. What I am more interested today is about telling you about the NVQ system, National Vocational Qualifications System of Sri Lanka. That is linked to tertiary education. Right, it has 7 levels. The level 1 is for students who have never been to school. Right, there are students who have never been to school. Then level 2 is for students who have been to school but who have not been able to complete uh, their compulsory education cycle. Now, what is compulsory education? Compulsory education is the compulsory period that every child has to be in school. Right. So there are laws and regulations for that. It is legally enacted. The children have to be in school uh, until they complete grade 9. So the school year, the school education starts at grade 1. The children who are 5 plus can enter the grade 1, and they have to be there for 9 years until they are 14 plus and until they complete grade 9 education. So after that, they can leave the school if they so wish, because they have completed the compulsory education cycle. Now, NVQ system, NVQ level 2 was meant for children who have been to school but who have not been able to uh, complete the compulsory education cycle, who have not been able to remain in the school until they complete grade 9 or 14 plus by age. Then NVQ level 3. This is for students who have gone up to GC OVEL but who have not been successful there. In our country, the students have to get pass in 2 subjects out of the 9 offered now. They have to pass in mathematics and mother tongue to be considered as successful in the GCOL. But many students find it difficult to do the mathematics paper because it is a common paper. The left brainers and the right brainers all have to sit the same paper. So the right brainers, who are more geared towards creativity and innovation, they lack the critical thinking abilities. As a result, they find it difficult to get a pass in the math paper. As a result, they were considered as failures in the GCOL. But with the establishment of the tertiary education sector, now they can go for NVQ level 3 courses. If they have gone up to the GCOL, they can get admission to NVQ level 3 course, and once they complete this course, they are considered as uh, people the equivalent to GCOL qualification. They have got a qualification equivalent to GCOL qualification. But we have to remember, this is only for employment purposes and not for academic purposes. So that is NVQ level 3. It's open to people who have been to school, who have completed the compulsory school going age. That is the school that is level grade 9 of the school system. They have gone to grade 10, grade 11. They have sat the GCOL exam, but unfortunately, they have not been able to uh, become successful in the GCOL exam with with a pass in mathematics, with 6 passes, including mathematics and mother tongue. So they have another opportunity. They can get into the tertiary education sector. They can take a course at the NVQ level 3. Once they complete that course successfully, they are considered as people who are qualified at the GCOL. Then comes the NVQ level 4. So anybody who sits the NVQ level 4 and who completes it successfully are, are considered equivalent to people with the GCE ALS certificate. And this is also for academic, not for academic purposes, but only for employment purposes. Right, so NVQ4 is considered equivalent to GCAL, NVQ3 is equivalent to GCEOL. After GCAL, now they can go for a higher diploma. The technical colleges, we have around 30 technical colleges dispersed throughout the country. Right, the first technical college was establishing as early as 1893. So now they can go for technical colleges. They can get registered in a technical college, and they can follow the higher national diploma. Right, it's a national diploma, higher national diploma. They can follow it at a technical college, and once they are through, then there's a special university established for them. This university is called Unimotech, University for Vocational and Technical Education. Now, they enter this university, they have to be there for 2 years. When they complete their first year, they get NVQ level 6 qualification. When they complete the level 7, when they complete their second year in the university, they get the NVQ level 7 qualification. This qualifies them for a first degree. Right, so now this is the great thing for the young people of the country. They don't have to be frustrated if they fail to enter the university after sitting their GCAL. They have a second opportunity. They can get into the tertiary education sector. They can go through the NVQ ladder. They can enter the university for vocational and technical education, and studying there for 2 years, they can uh, they are privileged to get a first degree. So, likewise, in the new millennium, with the establishment of the NVQ system or NVQ framework, and with the establishment of the new Ministry for Skill Development and Vocational Education, we could uh, bring we could bring about a reduction in the youth frustration by providing them with opportunity to providing them with a second opportunity to opt for higher education. Okay, now I am moving to my next slide. Now, what is the place of general education in the larger system of education? Right? So, I am more interested in general education. What is the place of general education in the larger system of education? Now, as people who are interested in ECCD, early childhood care and development, now you may be wondering what is the place of ECCD in the Sri Lankan education context. So I have to tell you, up to 1972, we had the nursery classes attached to the schools. When we were young, when we were schooling, right, we had the lower kindergarten and the upper kindergarten. The lower kindergarten was for children who were 3 plus. When you are 3 plus, you can enter the lower kindergarten. When you are 4 plus, you are promoted to the upper kindergarten. So this is the type of nursery that we had attached to our schools, but the system was abolished in 1972. With a new reform coming up, they abolished the kindergarten classes that were there in, in the schools of Sri Lanka in the past. Now what happened? As a result, the preschool education uh, became a responsibility, or it went into the hands of the private sector. So the private sector started to provide preschool education for the young children of the country. Then, with the establishment of the provincial governments in the late 1980s, they were made responsible for early childhood care and development. So the provinces had a women's secretariat or a children's secretariat, and with the guidance of that secretariat, the provincial councils started to develop a preschool education in the country. So this is a system that we had until the appointment of the new government. Right, the provincial authorities were responsible for preschool education, and the National Minister of Education was responsible for school education. Right, so let me show you the big picture of the place of general education in the large system of Sri Lanka. Right, now types of education. What are the types of education? Yeah, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have general education or school education, tertiary education, and higher education. Now, what comes under general education? Yes, if I ask you to divide the general education into two segments, the correct answer is primary education and secondary education. We have primary education from grade 1 to 5, and we have secondary education from grade 6 to 13. Our school cycle is a 13-year cycle. So 1 to 5 is the primary education, then 6 to 13 is the secondary education. If I ask somebody to divide the secondary cycle again into two segments, the correct answer is 6 to 9, junior secondary education, and 10 to 13, senior secondary education. So secondary education is subdivided again into junior secondary education and senior secondary education. The senior secondary education is again divided into two segments. 10 to 11 is GCOL. At the end of grade 11, the children have to sit the GCOL exam. They have to take 9 subjects in total now. Then they have to sit the GCL exam at the end of grade 13. So these are the two segments that come under senior secondary education. If we take primary education, it has 3 levels: Key Stage 1, incorporating grades 1 and 2, Key Stage 2, incorporating grades 3 and 4, and Key Stage 3, incorporating grade 5. The sad story is that the children have to sit a norm reference evaluation at the end of grade 5. Ours is a poor country where the government is not in a position to provide a prestigious school or a good school for every child born to the country. As a result, the children have to compete to get a place in a prestigious school. For this, there's an examination called grade 5 scholarship exam, right? Uh, where they are given marks out of 200. Even though they get 195 marks out of 200, due to the big competitions, sometimes the students are considered as failures of this exam and they are not eligible for a good school or a prestigious school in the country. This is the nature of norm reference exam. It depends on the performance of the student, the cohort that set the exam, the group that set the exam. If they do very well, then even though you score 195 marks out of 200, you are not going to get a place in a popular or prestigious school, right? So this is the reason why we have why the tutories are mushrooming. Tutories are mushrooming. The schools have to compete with the tutories, right? Their main function is preparing the children for exams, but the school's main function is not that. The school has to see to the well-being of the children, cater to the 21st century skills, and see to the well-being of the students. But due to parental pressure, the schools are not in a position to do this. To do this, this is the unfortunate situation, right? All over the world, the schools were in trying to become effective schools. Even in the developed countries, due to their competition with the other countries, because they get their children to sit international exams, and there's a big competition to score high marks in this examination for you to shine in the world, shine among the other countries. So as a result, even the developed countries, they compel their students to do well in the exams, and as a result, they have high competition in those countries also. So the purpose of education was to bring about effective schools. Effective in the sense, the schools that are successful in public exams. The developed countries have state exams, exams at state level, exams at national level, but a small country like ours, we have only national level exams. We have three such exams. I discussed about the first exam, which is at the primary level, that is for them to get a good school in the country, to get the privilege to enter a popular school in the country. Then we have another exam at the end of grade 11, and it is called the GCOL. It is not a norm reference exam, it's a criterion reference exam. If you can get the pass mark for the 9 subjects that you offer, you are considered, you become, you are qualified for the GCOL certificate. At least 6 passes, including mathematics and mother tongue, right? You need that to qualify for the GCOL exam, qualifying the GCOL examination. So that is a criterion reference exam. And again, when they come to grade 12 or 13, right, at the end of grade 13, they have to sit the third exam. That is also a norm reference exam, because the government can't give every child completing the GCAL a place in the university. The places are scarce, right? Everybody qualifying for university education are not in a position to get a place in the university. So sometimes we find certain children getting 3A passes at the GCL exam. They have to sit three papers for the GCL, three major papers. And in addition, they have to sit the general information technology and general English, excluding those two. The three major papers they have to sit from the subject stream that they have selected. Some people getting 3As, still they are not in a position to gain admission to the universities, because the aggregate or the ESET scores may not be adequate for them to get that place. So now you may understand what I mean by norm reference exams. It depends on the performance of the big group, right? A group of people sit the PCL exam, but if they all perform well, if they all, most of them have 3As, then we can't guarantee a place in the university for somebody with the GCEAL also, right? So this is situation with norm reference exam. So primary education, I have discussed the three levels, the three key stages, right? We had a big reform in 1999 to revive our primary education, and still we are dealing with that system, with a lot of changes done, but I am not going to go into details regarding primary education. So 6 to 9 is a very good time for the students to develop 21st century skills, but unfortunately our teachers are still in the traditional roles of the teacher. You may know transmission and transaction roles are traditional roles. The new role of the teacher is the transformation role. Since 2007, because 2007 we had the first curriculum reform of the new millennium. From there itself, we started to develop, uh, take our teachers, move our teachers from the traditional roles to the new role of transformation. But we have not been successful yet. Still, most of the teachers are still playing the transmission and the transaction roles. You know, transmission got outdated at the end of World War II. At the end of World War II, we started industrialization. Industrialization was the motto. We were very keen in that, keen in development, and with that, the teachers had to change their role from transmission to transaction. Since then, until the new millennium, the teachers were playing the second role of transaction. In the new millennium, in our first reform of the new millennium, we made it compulsory for them to move into their third role of transformation. But uh, has not yet happened. The reforms are not getting institutionalized in the system due to this examination pressure, with a whole lot of exams taking place in the system, and the children compelled to study for these exams, and the concept of effective schools in practice, like in the developed countries, we have not been able to become successful uh, in general education. Now, as you may know, uh, today the concept is not effective schools. The concept today is successful schools. To become a successful school, you have other matters to consider. It is not just getting the children to pass the exams or to do well at the public exams. The more important thing is to cater to the well-being of the children. So today, in the 21st century, we also started to move towards the successful school concept. So I will let you know about those things at a later stage. Right. So effective school concept was there for a long time, even in the developed world. But now everybody has realized the disadvantages of that. Now everybody wants to move into the successful school concept, which considers two things together. That is, uh, to make the children successful in the public examinations, while at the same time catering to the well-being of school children. So I will discuss well-being in detail if I have the time today. Then tertiary education. It has two aspects: technical education and vocational education. We have around 30 technical colleges in the country dispersed throughout the country, over 300 vocational training centers dispersed throughout the country. So this is the new introduction. Right? This came to being to reduce the youth frustration and to provide them with a second opportunity for higher studies or for the university degree. So the governing body here is the KVEC, Technical, Vocational and Education Commission, which was established in the 1990s and which brought about the NVQ system in 2004 to get tertiary education to start properly. Higher education, it's university education. I told you we have around 15 universities in the country, and with the Open University in Sri Lanka, the Open University of Sri Lanka, and also a whole lot of postgraduate institutes affiliated to the universities. It is also a big network, but still it can cater only to 7% of an age cohort, right? Age cohort, the children of one particular age, right? Children born to the country in one particular year. Now this is the meaning of the cohort. Only 7% or 7.2% of an age cohort can get admission or can get recruitment in the university system. The universities are governed by the UGC, University Grants Commission, right? So university education is also has also not changed. It's lecturing. The lecturing happens there to a certain extent. So all these things have to be innovated and upgraded to suit the needs of the 21st century. Okay, then I like to draw attention to two things. Whether you are in general education or tertiary education or in higher education, we have to cater to the development of the staff. We call that management development and teacher development. We have non-teaching staff also. Such people also have to be catered to, and teacher development is uh, can be initial or continuing. So initial teacher development, right? When we want to get a new set of teachers into the system, we have to provide them with initial training. We have nursing schools in the country to train the nurses. We have colleges of education. We have 20 colleges of education in the country. They are called national colleges of education. We have a big teacher network to provide initial education for the teachers to be. Now, these are the people who do well at the GCAL, but who miss the opportunity to get admission to the university. So now they can join a National College of Education, right? These colleges are 20 in number. They are dispersed all over the country. And those who do very well, those who have high set scores, are selected for this initial teacher development, which we call pre-service teacher education. So once they are in the system, they have to come for teacher development programs again, and that is called continuing teacher development. So management development, we have a special center for that to cater to the development needs of managers. Okay, so what I like to tell you is these aspects are common to tertiary education and also to higher education, because in all the sectors we have managerial staff, teaching staff and non-teaching staff. So we have to look after them. We have to cater to their needs. We have to uplift their thinking to suit the needs of the 21st century. So for that we need not only initial education but also continuing education as well. Now, in the early days, when we were in the transmission role of the teacher, we call this teacher training and management training. the term training was very popular. What is teacher training? Right? Teacher training. It's like shooting to a target or sending an arrow to a target. You can practice that and you can accomplish. You can reach the target. So training is something like that. But with the developments happening in the world, the term teacher training got converted to a different term, teacher education. Similarly, management development got converted to a different term, management education. So education is helping the children to adapt to the real life situations. So when you are in a school, when you are in a classroom, trying to teach a group of students, how well you are prepared for your teaching. You may not be able to implement the plan that you have with you. There can be so many circumstances which will compel you to uh, adapt your teaching to the changes that are happening in the classroom, to the classroom situations. So adaptation is needed. You have to adapt the plans to see the needs of the classroom. Right? In when you are in the transaction role, you can adopt. Right? You come to school uh, to adopt the knowledge that you get from the teacher. But in the transaction role, uh, you have to adapt the knowledge to teach to suit the situations that you have encountered. So teacher training in the first era got converted to teacher education in the second era, and today in the 21st century we are not using the word teacher education also. We are not using the term management education also. We have two new terms, management development and teacher development. So these, these changes from training to education, from education to development are in line with the first change that I mentioned to you, transmission to transaction, from transaction to transformation, right? With the changing times, with the changing eras, these changes are happening. Training got converted to education, education got converted to development, right? With transmission getting converted to transaction, and transaction needing a conversion to transformation. So these things are common to tertiary education, where you have uh, teaching staff and a managerial staff. So these both categories of staff have to be developed both in tertiary education and higher education as well. Now I like to expose you to the educational hierarchy. Right, this is the hierarchy. Uh, I am showing you 6 levels here. All these are organizations. What you have at the top here, Ministry of Education, is a national organization at the national level. Ministry of Education is an organization at the national level. Then we have 9 provincial ministries. We have 9 provinces. For each province, we have a provincial ministry. So under the National Ministry of Education, 9 provincial ministries are functioning, headed by a provincial director of education. Under each province, we have at least 3 educational zones, with a zonal director heading the zonal department. So zone is very important at the time of curriculum reforms to bring down the to pass down the curriculum reforms from the national level to the grassroots level. The zone is has a big job to do. We have a deputy zonal director called the zonal development director, and the zonal development director has a whole lot of subject directors to support him or her, and the subject directors have experienced teachers called in-service advisors to support them. So this group has to take action to take down the messages from the top to the grassroots level. Ours is a centralized system. We have a centralized curriculum. The National Institute of Education is responsible for that curriculum. So once the curriculum is developed, once the textbooks are printed, once the examination guidelines are done, all these have to be taken down to the school level and to the classroom level also. So zone is very important in taking down the messages from the national level to the grassroots level. Under each zone, we have 3 or more divisions headed by a divisional education officer. So there are divisional departments of education, The head of that department is divisional education officer, and under the divisional education officer we have around 1,000 schools. The total number of schools in the country exceeds 10,000. So roughly we have around 1,000 schools for one division, and the schools have another organization within them. It is the classroom. Now the teacher is the person who is heading the classroom. The leader of the classroom, the manager of the classroom is the teacher, right? And the principal is also a leader and a manager. Earlier, we were talking about management and administration, but today leadership has come forward. Today, the leaders have the principals are not managers, but they have two roles to play, the leadership role and the management role. So leadership now accompanies the management. So from the school, when schools are put together to form a division, divisions are put together to form a zone, zones are put together to form a province, and 9 provinces are put together to form the National Ministry of Education. The provinces also have ministries of education, but they are called provincial ministries of education. Now, surrounding the main hierarchy, what do we have? We have a lot of national institutes of education. We have a lot of national institutes supporting the main hierarchy. So, National Education Commission. This is a presidential commission to formulate policy, education policy for the country. National Education Commission is there. Then we have the National Institute of Education, right? This is the professional arm of the Ministry of Education. It has three major functions. The main one is developing the new curricula for the system. Every 8 years, we have a curriculum reform. So our next reform is scheduled for 2023. Our first curriculum reform of the new millennium was introduced, was took place in 2007. Then it was revised in 2015, and the third revision is scheduled for 2023. So at the moment, we are quite busy getting ready for a new reform in 2023. And our policy is to go for a bottom up approach. Now, the top down approach does not work because we have to have a lot of university people involved to develop the curricula for the GCAL. Their involvement makes the GCAL curricula very heavy. When the top is heavy, when the GCAL curricula are heavy, we have to we have to send it down to the lower level, right? With a heavy curriculum at the GCAL, the GCOL curricula becomes heavy because we have to impart, because we have to prepare the GCOL students to study in the GCAL. So GCOL curricula become heavy. When the GCOL curriculum is heavy, the junior secondary curriculum also gets heavy. When the GCOL, when the junior secondary curriculum gets heavy, unfortunately, the primary students also have to suffer. The primary curriculum also gets heavy. So we are not in favor of the topic top-down reforms. Sending reforms from the top to the bottom is not what we appreciate. We want to start at the bottom, and we want to send the reforms from the bottom to the top. So we normally start at two levels, grade 1 and grade 6 and grade 10, like that. Grade 1, grade 6 and grade 10. So first in the first year, grade 1, grade 6 and grade 10 curricula reformed. In the next year, grade 2, grade 7 and grade 11 curricula reformed. In the third year, grade 3, grade 8 and grade 12 curricula reform. In the fourth year, grade 4, then grade 9 and grade 13 curricula reform, and ultimately grade 5 also gets reformed later. So this is what we prefer, right, to have a bottom-up approach, at least injecting the reforms at three places. We are interested in that form, that mechanism. Now, you may be wondering what happened to early childhood care and development. So this is how the things operate in our system. This is a task for the private sector now, right? Until recently, but now they are doing their best to streamline this, to pay more attention to early childhood care and development, to systematize this. So early childhood care and development is not currently not open to every child born to the country. The children have to have, the parents have to, should be able to afford, right? They should have money to spend on ECCD, early childhood development, and also early childhood care is there. So the well-to-do people can benefit from the facilities available here. Then those who without ECCD, everybody has the right to enter the grade 1 of the general education system. Grade 1 of the general education system. Now, general education system is supported by a number of organizations. So what I have at the top, institutes or organizations of the education hierarchy. The zonal department is an organization. Divisional department, the school, the classroom, the provincial department, ministry, all these are can be called institutes or organizations. They are institutes and organizations of the education hierarchy. Then I showed you around the hierarchy we have a lot of other people or other organizations or institutes supporting the education hierarchy. So National Institute of Education is one major institute established by a Parliament Act of 1985, yeah, as the professional arm of the Ministry of Education. The National Institute of Education has three major functions. The first is the curriculum development at the national level. So our curricula are national developed, and the textbook production is undertaken by a ministry department called the Education Publications Department. And we have another institute called NETS, National Evaluation and Testing Services, supporting the hierarchy. That department is catering to the examination work or the public examinations. I think I missed this. Here you see these institutes. NIE stands for National Institute of Education. NEC is the commission, the policy making body is the Presidential Commission, National Education Commission. Then NETS is National Evaluation and Testing Services. This is another name for the Department of Examinations. Then NEREC is the National Educational Research and Evaluation Center. This comes under the University of Colombo, established under the University of Colombo, National Educational Research and Evaluation Center. So its responsibility is conducting research mainly on education reforms to tell the reformers how the reforms are performing so that they can take timely action to improve the reforms. Okay, then uh, you have to understand that we have a number of organizations within the hierarchy and also number of institutes and organizations supporting the education hierarchy. The NEC, the NIE, the NETS, and the NEREC, they are the institutes or organizations that support the education hierarchy. Now, the children in general education, they have a 13-year cycle, and when they complete the general education cycle, they have a number of paths to go. A very few of them will get into higher education, into the university system. Roughly 7.2% of the people completing the GCAL gain access to higher education. Now they have a second opportunity. They can get into tertiary education. By going into tertiary education, they have the privilege to gain university admission. They have the privilege to gain a university degree at the end of the tertiary education cycle. So the University for Vocational and Technical Education is the only university that comes under tertiary education to help the young people who do well at the GCAL but who fail to gain admission to the universities, to give them a second opportunity for a university degree. Then we have other facilities, opportunities available for professional development. Those who do well at the GCAL, now they don't want to go into the world of work straight away. Some people, they like to find a job in the job market, but there are other people who want to get trained or developed for a job of their choice, a job that comes, a job of their choice. So there are two types of training, that vocational and technical education is for less qualified people, but people who do very well at the GCOL, they can get into initial professional development. I gave you two examples. We have nursing schools. So those who do well in science but who fail to get into higher education, they can join a nursing school to become a future nurse. I told you that we have 20 colleges of education, right, affiliated to the National Institute of Education. These are the colleges that provide pre-service education to the future teachers. So there are opportunities available in the service sector and also in the production sector for the qualified people to gain initial professional development and later continuing professional development. So this is where the people go. This is where the people go. People who complete their general education. So they have a number of paths to go. Just a few go into higher education. Quite a number can go into tertiary education. A large percentage can get into the world of work. They are not interested in any more training. They want to find some employment and they are getting into the world of work straight away. But there are others who want to undergo, who want to follow a professional development program to get into a job that they like. If they like teaching, they can they can go into initial education with their qualifications and then prepare for the job of teaching. Right. So we have three types of employment opportunities for the people completing general education. Right. First one is jobs in the government sector, state sector. Many people like to get into a job in the state sector because you have so many facilities there. So that is the much demanded area. People seek for jobs in the state sector. Then we have another sector, the private sector. To get a job in the private sector is not so easy because they are not very interested in the paper qualifications. They they take a big look at the personality of the candidate. They want to make sure that the candidate has developed the the soft skills, right? So it's not easy to get employment in the private sector because they are not very bothered about the exam results. They want people with a good personality. And we have the self-employment sector also. The people with entrepreneurial skills, with business ideas, they can find employment. They can find employment of their own. That is the self-employment sector. And there's another group who who prefer homemaking. These are the women who like to become good housewives. Right? They seek for the home and company for their employment that we call homemaking. So these are the paths that the children take after completing their education. Right? So I have a lot more to say, but I think the time is running out. Now, to cater to these needs, we have defined what we mean by a good general education because we have a lot of misconceptions here. Many parents think that a good education or a good school is an organization that helps their children to get good passes at the public examination, which is totally incorrect. The role of a good school is not to purely that. That is an effective school, but not a successful school. So that is one misconception. The parents think that the role of the education system or the role of a school is to provide is to provide uh, is to help their children to get good qualifications at the public examinations. There's another group of parents who consider the role of the school, who considers the school as a place for training their children for future jobs. They think schools are vocational institutes. They consider the school as a place where the children have to be trained for a future job. That is also a misconception. There's another group of parents who are discouraging 21st century education. These are the parents who tell us we want our children to be educated in the same way that we learned in our school days. As school children, we went to schools and the teachers taught us, they gave us notes, we performed very well, we are in good positions today. So let our children also learn like that. They are not bothered about group work, exploratory learning, inquiry based learning, action based learning. They are not worried about these new concepts. So they are compelling the schools to go for the traditional type of education. So to get rid of all these misconceptions, we have developed a definition for good general education. Now, what do we mean by good general education? This is the definition. A good general education is something that lays the foundation for the young to be successful in any walk of life they select for their future. I have just mentioned to you the different walks of life available to school children. Those who complete their school education, just a few can get into the university. A lot of people will seek further education in the tertiary education sector, in a technical college or a vocational training center. Then there will be others who are qualified at the GCL who are not willing to get into a job straight away, but who want to go undergo some professional education program to become nurses, teachers, so on and so forth. That can be in the service sector or in the production sector also. Even in the forces, even in the hotel schools, they can get training. In the plantation sector, they have training institutes to cater to the needs of the qualified people who are looking for professional development, professional education. Right. So first they can leave the school, they can go to universities, then go in search of a go into technical, go into tertiary education, then they can go into the world of work, they can join the public sector, private sector, or the self-employment sector. Then there's another category who wish to join the home and company for homemaking purposes. Their ambition is to become a good housewife. Right. So putting all this into together, I have developed a diagram. Right. Now this can be called the successful school. Now we are not interested in a purely effective school. What we want is a successful school which produces good results while at the same time catering to the well-being of the young of the nation. Now the idea there is to develop an integrated personality. Is to develop an integrated personality. Now see how we are trying to develop a young person with an integrated personality. We start from the outer ring. There we have physical development. This is the most important thing. If you are not healthy, if you are ill the whole time, you can't be successful in your education or in your employment. So physical development is related to the body, and there are three things that we have to consider: health, nutrition, and physical fitness. And these are the three things. So today in the new reform, we are giving a big place to health education or health and physical education. We say health first, and we are giving a very big place to the subject health and physical education. Only in a healthy body that we can expect a healthy mind. Right? If the body is sick, we can't expect a healthy mind for that person. So in the second circle, now we are coming to the mental aspects, cognitive aspects. We are talking about intellectual development. Right? We get this intellectual development through the subjects of the curriculum. Now we are in a competency based approach. In 2007, we moved into a competency based approach. So we have subject competencies. Right? The content is converted into competencies. These are the behaviors that the children have to demonstrate in their life. Throughout their life, they have to become successful in their life, in their work, in their home encounters. Right? To be successful, they have to develop these subject competencies. So this is related to the intellectual development aspect. In the past, we had only the intellectual development. We totally ignored the inner circle, which deals with socio-emotional development. Right? Socio-emotional development. These are the soft skills. Subject competencies are not soft skills. We call them the hard skills. They come from the subject. Right? It is a part of intellectual development. But generic competencies come from the learning teaching process that we use to impart subject knowledge. So generic competencies are very important. This is a 21st century skill, and we focus on socio-emotional development. We have to develop a whole lot of soft skills in our students. We divide the soft skills into two parts. Personal skills are called intrapersonal skills. Intra means they come from within. Then social skills are called interpersonal skills. Right? Interpersonal skills are seen among people. Social skills are seen among people, and personal skills are come from within the person. So we have two major types of skills: interpersonal or social skills, intrapersonal and personal skills. In addition to these two, We are highlighting thinking skills in the 21st century. Thinking skills are also personal skills. They come in the personal skill basket. But since the schools have failed all over the world in developing the thinking skills, right? Although we have it under personal skills, the schools have not taken have not paid much effort in developing thinking skills. So to overcome this problem, now we are drawing it out from the personal skills basket. We are keeping we are keeping it in a new basket. So altogether we have three baskets now. One for personal skills or intrapersonal skills that come from within the person, things like commitment, managing stress, such things can be there. Then social skills, which you have to demonstrate when you are with other people. They are called interpersonal skills like communication, leadership, followership. Such things are coming here. And then thinking skills like creative thinking and critical thinking. Right? So I don't think I have time. The time given to me has now come to an end. So let me wind up now. Uh, yes, I think I have come to the end of my session. Unless they have questions, I think I can wind up.
Thank you very much, madam. Your excellent speech. So you talked about general education, type of education in Sri Lanka, then integrated development, soft skills, job opportunities, the role of teachers, the whole picture of the system of education system in Sri Lanka. Very much appreciate. Right, thank you very much, madam,
Yeah,
for your
thank you very much.
yes, valuable time and opportunity. Because you have a lot of, we know. I want to say the audience, she's the very humble and talented the educationist in Sri Lanka. I remember that she was a pioneer to introduce Sri Lanka primary education reforms and general education reforms and method of 5E. Then I also as a graduate in the postgraduate student, I also participated most of lectures those days. Thank you very much, madam.